Hello, Michael here, looking at Proverbs 3, specifically verse 7 to 10 for the exposition. Let's go ahead and read those first 6 verses and then get into the exposition. This psalm can be subtitled, Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Verse 1 reads, My son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. For length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck. Write them upon the table of thine heart. So shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. In verse 7, Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. It shall be health to thy navel, and marrow to thy bones. Verse 9, Honor the Lord with thy substance, and with the firstfruits of all thine increase. And verse 10, So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine. Let's now turn to the exposition. And verse 7 reads, Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. And he exposits, Vain man would be wise, although man is born like the wild ass colt. The world is full of wise men, or of men that would be thought wise. But we cannot be truly wise unless we become fools, renouncing all dependence on our own wisdom, and depending with humility upon the Lord for those supplies of wisdom that are necessary for enlightening our minds and directing our paths. When we pretend to ask counsel from God, whilst we have a secret dependence upon ourselves and a reserved determination to pay no regard to His word or providence, if it should cross our own humors, we play the hypocrite with God, and cover over that self-confidence which He abhors, with false professions of faith and resignation to the will of God. Johanan and his proud companions were terribly threatened for this dissimulation by the prophet Jeremiah. A high opinion of men's own wisdom is so dangerous that Isaiah pronounces a heavy woe upon it. We are not indeed to pull out our own eyes, to renounce our own understanding, or to believe contradictions, but we ought certainly to keep our rational powers in subjection to the Word of God, to be sensible of our great liableness to err, and of our absolute need of the divine direction, especially in those matters that concern religion. That we may have our paths made straight, we must also fear the Lord, and depart from evil. To them that fear the Lord is addressed a promise of divine teaching. The religious affection has a native tendency to prevent men from turning out of the way of truth. By the fear of the Lord, men depart from evil. It acts as a sentinel to the soul, which keeps temptation from entering. God makes use of the grace of fear, as well as that of faith, in repelling temptation and in subduing corruption. I will put my fear, says he, into their hearts, and they shall not depart from me. Abraham displayed his fear of God, as well as his unconquerable faith, when nothing could for one moment withhold him from obeying the strangest command which mortal ever received. Now I know that thou feared God, said the angel, seeing thou had not withheld from me thy son, thine only son. The fear of God preserves men from bodily disease, as well as from sin. Verse 8. It shall be health to thy navel and marrow to thy bones. The navel is a useful part of the body, being sort of a ligament to knit the bowels together. The bones are the strength and fence of the body. The fear of God is health to the outward as well as to the inward man. Health is an object of desire to all, and the wise man will not only use medicines when sick for the restoration of it, but will attentively consider what food and what exercise are the most proper for preserving health in the navel and marrow in the bones. The spiritual wise will remember that in God's hand is our life and breath and all our ways, that diseases are his servants which come and go at his pleasure, and that the surest way to health is to walk before him unto all pleasing. Does he then enjoy health? He has a blessing along with it. Is he the victim of disease? It will be more beneficial to him than is to the wicked his unsanctified health. Religion has a natural tendency to impart health and vigor to the body, because it preserves a man from those distempers which proceed from unsubdued lusts, and diffuses over the mind that calm serenity and heartfelt joy, which even upon the body exercise a medicinal influence. We are next required to be liberal in the service of God. Verse 9 and 10. Honor the Lord with thy substance, and with the first fruit of all thine increase. So shall thy barns be filled with plenty, and thy presses shall burst out with new wine. Earthly substance is necessary for the use of our bodies, but we are called to make a nobler use of it than the snare service of the outward man. We are to honor the Lord with it, making no use of any part of our increase till we have set apart a reasonable proportion of it for the service of God. God needs nothing at our hands, but for our own benefit he will have us to render back a part of all he gives us for the decent support of his worship and for the maintenance of the poor. Is any hardship to give a part of him from whom we have received all? Can we make better use of our wealth, which is often a snare and trap to men, by serving God, and thus making to ourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness? By this means we honor the Lord. He is the creator and redeemer of our souls and bodies, and therefore we are to glorify him with our bodies and our spirits, which are his. Our substance is his also, and we must honor him with it by a liberality in his service, proportioned to the extent of his bounty. By the practice of this duty, we show our faith in his providence and promises, our love to God, our gratitude for his goodness, and our preference of his service to that of mammon. In this manner we justify our profession of the gospel of Christ, and others are made to glorify God, while they enjoy the benefit of our ministrations to this purpose. By the neglect of this duty, we are guilty of robbing God himself of that rent which he requires from us as his tenants. We dishonor him by showing that we love the world better than his service, and that we trust more to our chests or to our bonds upon our fellow creatures than to his promises. For has he not assured us that instead of being losers, we shall be great gainers by what we bestow upon him? Liberality on God's account brings down the blessing of providence to such a degree that our barns shall be filled and our presses need enlargement. God has the sun and winds and rain and creatures of every description in his hand, and these he manages in such a manner as that none shall be a loser by him, nor a gainer by withholding from him. Robbers of God are visited with a curse, which like a moth wastes or like a fire destroys their substance. Liberality opens the windows of heaven, destroys the devouring locust, and turns the barren field into a delightful land. Health and riches are the advantages that attend the fear of the Lord, and liberality in his service. But we must not imagine that these blessings are promised without a reservation of the cross, when God sees it needful for us, nor suppose that God is unfaithful when he administers correction to his children. This truth is inculcated in the next instruction of the wise king, which teaches us how to behave under afflictive providences. So they go on to verse 11, which we will do in another episode. Trust you enjoy the reading of Proverbs 3, verse 7 to 10. This is Michael here declaring yet again, Jesus is Lord. Until next time, be blessed.